It is truly ridiculous to stand in this hidden corner and look out at the world, witnessing those who are starving as they personally hand the fat to the old cat's mouth. They bow their heads with tearful eyes, moved as if they had just received a blessing from heaven. People often think modern-day slaves must be shackled by binding contracts or financial debts, but the most enduring chain is forged from an invisible, soft and sweet metal called gratitude. Why do wise people accept working for free? And why do capable individuals fear demanding their rightful benefits? The answer lies within the sophisticated psychological trap that those at the top of the food chain have set. They turn a fair exchange into a benefactor and beneficiary relationship, turning the workplace into a school of hypocrisy, and turning labor into tuition for inconsequential lessons. The operating mechanism of this trap begins with the crushing of self-esteem. To make a capable person bow their head, one must first make that person feel small, flawed, and ignorant. Experienced predators in the office understand perfectly well that if you hire someone to work, you must pay them. But if you take on a disciple to mentor, you can reap both loyalty and free labor. Concepts like real-world experience and hand-holding guidance are cast out like fragrant bait. No one talks about the surplus value created from unpaid overtime hours. They only talk about what you have learned today. When confidence is eroded by sophisticated criticism disguised as constructive feedback, the victim falls into a state of confusion. They believe they are truly a useless person, lucky enough to be sheltered. At this point, the employer is no longer a partner buying labor. They have transformed into a benefactor, a great teacher who is exhausting his mind and soul to polish a rough diamond. As a student and a debtor of gratitude, what right does one have to demand fair money from their venerable master? Gratitude, when weaponized, becomes an extremely potent neural anesthetic. It makes the victim feel guilty every time a thought of personal interest flashes through their mind. How can one demand a raise when the boss has created conditions for them to join a major project, even though the reality is simply a lack of people to do the menial work? How can one refuse to work on weekends when the mentor has sacrificed time to correct every small mistake, even though the reality is micromanagement to ensure their own interests? The feeling of debt weighs heavily on the shoulders, turning every hour of work into an effort to repay an imaginary debt of kindness. Master manipulators always know how to maintain this balance in a state of permanent imbalance. They dispense cheap praise, promises of a brilliant future, and intimate pats on the back in exchange for thousands of hours of intense intellectual labor. It is the most absurd transaction on earth. One side gives sweat, blood, and tears, while the other side gives only lip service and illusions. Yet the disadvantaged side is the one constantly saying thank you. Looking deeper into the nature of the lessons sold under the guise of favors, the truth is even more naked and cruel. Knowledge in this environment is not a universal truth that sets people free. Instead, it is a set of local rules designed to serve the money-making machine of the giver. They do not teach critical thinking to make employees better. They teach procedures to make employees more obedient. They do not teach how to master the game, but how to become a perfect and irreplaceable link in their own production line. What are called trade secrets are actually just habits, preferences, or even the misguided prejudices of the leader, sanctified into golden rules. The victims think they are absorbing the essence of humanity, but in reality, they are just being installed with a closed operating system. This makes them useless if they step out of that environment. This is the pinnacle of enslavement. It creates people who can only survive by clinging to a host, stripping away their ability to fly independently with the very prosthetic wings they thought they were being gifted. The reality unfolds daily, right before our eyes, but few are willing to admit it. In offices lit until late at night, young and haggard faces still shine with a blind faith that this exhaustion is a worthy price for maturity. They hurriedly swallow a dry piece of bread while their fingers type incessantly. In their hearts, they are still secretly grateful to the boss sitting at a luxury restaurant for trusting them with heavy responsibilities. They do not see that such trust is actually the laziness and cunning of the superior, dumping the burden onto the subordinate to be free to enjoy themselves. When a project succeeds, glory and money flow into the leader's pocket. When it fails, The bloody lessons and heavy responsibilities are divided equally among those in training. The injustice is palpably present, but it has been completely obscured by the fog of morality. Furthermore, when someone wakes up and wants to leave, they are immediately labeled as a traitor. Social pressure and the fear of moral judgment keep them stayed, continuing to wring out the last drops of energy until they become soulless husks, discarded to make room for a new batch of naive students. Look at the parties and the hollow award ceremonies. The manipulator stands on a high podium, tearfully speaking about family affection and dedication. Below, the sheep applaud enthusiastically, forgetting that in a real home, no one kicks their children out onto the street when they are no longer useful. Family culture or gratitude culture in a profit-driven environment is the gentlest of nooses. It blurs the boundaries between work and life, making exploitation rationalized under the label of sacrifice. The leader does not need to pay high salaries. They only need to dispense a bit of fake affection to buy off souls. A timely inquiry about health is worth more than millions in bonuses, for it strikes right at the hunger for recognition in this cold society. Exploiting that psychological weakness is not humanitarian. It is calculated cruelty. The law of this game is as cold as a scalpel dissecting the truth. There is no such thing as a free lunch, and no lesson is a gift without strings attached. In the world of interests, everything is a transaction. If you do not see the cash for the porridge, it means you yourself are the commodity being priced. Knowledge and experience are never bestowed. They must be exchanged, fought for, or even stolen through sharp observation. When you accept the position of a debtor of gratitude, you have personally signed your psychological death warrant. True maturity only comes when you dare to look straight into the eyes of the one granting you favors and realize that he needs you as much as you need him. The chain of gratitude only breaks when you realize your value does not lie in the recognition of others, but in your ability to produce results. Stop thanking the person who threw you a bone after stripping off all the meat. Learn how to hunt so you never have to wag your tail begging for food again. This world owes no one anything, and no one has the right to turn another into a debtor with just a few hollow teachings. Stay awake to see clearly. The strings jerking your limbs are not destiny or kindness, but the cold, sugar-coated calculations of greed.